Hey, Composing Gloves here, and this is the second video in the Harmless from the Ground Up tutorial series. And today we're going to be talking about the timbre section. It looks like it's spelled Timbre, but it's pronounced timbre. Now, to understand this, this is important that you understand additive synthesis too. So we're going to be talking about this a little bit at length. But timbre is the way the overtone series works. So as you can see here, we have our first frequency. This is a spectrograph, and it displays our frequencies. Whoops, didn't want to do that. And so we have right now our fundamental, which is this first frequency, and it's important to understand that all sound is made up of sine waves. So these are all additional sine waves being played at different velocity levels. You can see they get softer as we go, and they get more densely packed. That's because this is a logarithmic graph, and so this distance between 125 and 250, that's like what, 25, 125, somewhere around there. But over here we have 2000 to 4000. That's 2000 right there. So they get more densely packed. There's a lot more harmonic content, like a lot more up there. But all these things are sine waves, and they're being played. And each sine wave, if we look at our signal analyzer down here, let me turn this back on. As you can see, it has this starting point and this end point. So each one of these is called an oscillation or a cycle. So the time it takes to repeat that pattern. And it will, where this pattern starts, so you see it starts right here, but we could set it to start right here or right here instead. And that is called phase. And each one of these sine waves has the option of this to change phase. So you could change the phase of all of them at the same time so that they all line up. And what happens is if you have something out of phase, so if you have a sound that's going right here and you have a sound that's playing right here, they'll cancel each other out in volume. But these partials, these oscillate at different rates. So altogether we get this oscillation, but these sine waves are oscillating several thousand times a second, versus these guys are oscillating at, 169 times a second. And so as a result, you get all sorts of different phase cancellation. Like it means something different. And I'm trying to just get you to sort of wrap your head around that kind of an idea. And so this timbre section messes with that quite a bit. It's important that you understand those principles before we get started. So we have our waves, our wave tables, our waveforms that you could choose from. And there are a bunch of saw waves, a detuned saw. You have this weird one that I was playing earlier. Most of them are saw wave. And it's important to note that this overtone series equates to this shape. This shape contains all of those harmonics. And that's what creates this wave shape. So important to know about. All right, so let's talk about this. So we have our waves, and you can scroll over with your mouse wheel to switch between them. And you have that custom shape. Now, the cool thing about this is you could create, all your basic shapes. And if you reduce it, now that we know, if we reduce everything except the first harmonic, it will be a sine wave, as we can see. So that's how you get a sine wave. And it's one tone, and so that's how you do that. But you have this custom form. So how do you this custom form allows you to take any sine wave that you want at all, or not any sine wave, any waveform you want. So let's say it'll analyze. So you drop a piece of audio on there. So I have this audio, and I'm going to drop it on there. It'll switch to custom, and now you can't really hear it. But let me demonstrate to you real quick what's happening. So if we go to insert one, put an Edison on it. I already have one. And I have our sample loaded up. It's the exact same sample. If we were to play it, that's what you get. But let's select a small portion of it and zoom in a lot. Or not like a ton. But you see we have our waveform right here. It's this crazy looking waveform thing, and it oscillates at a rate. And what this will do is it'll take one cycle, so one oscillation, one time it takes to go from peak to the low end and back up, and it will take that as the waveform now. So if we were to take this by clicking this here little file drag and drop it on there, we now have set Harmless to use that as the waveform. And if we were to turn our equalizer off, and we're going to talk about our equalizer in a second, but to do that you just hold Alt and click them, and they'll reset. And you'll see now our waveform is the same shape as the one we just dropped on it. So that's how you could change waveform, and it's really, really nifty. So now let's talk about this phase thing. So as I said before, you could change the phase, and pay attention to where this waveform starts right here. And as I move this back and forth, it'll change where the waveform starts. Okay, and so what is going on here? Let's zoom in a lot to just make it really clear. And now it changes where it starts when you start your note, not during the middle of the note. That's called phase modulation. That's something else. So this changes. So we have all this harmonic content, right? And it has to take all of those sine waves and move all the phase in unison. So they all still start up at the same place and end at the same place. And that's what happens when you turn it left. It's called free running mode. And if you turn it to the right, it will produces a totally different sound. By the way, this also randomizes it. So it's slightly different every single time. It's not always the same. So it's not like a consistent change. And that's useful for creating just like more interesting leads, basses, attacks, things like that. And we'll make a few sounds to really quick show you. And then if you turn it the other way, this randomizes the phases of each individual partial. So each one of these guys is now completely out of phase with the other, and it's random. So every single time sounds way different. And just to really quick show you, we'll just play a few notes on a saw wave. And right now we have this. If we turn it to the right, if we turn it the other way, oh, you know what? I think I had that backwards. This randomizes the phases of all the individual partials, and this one does it globally. So it just creates a variety of hits. And you can say it sounds way different. Now you have this LHP. What the heck is that? This stands for low harmonic protection. So you're sending all this data telling your partials how to behave and how loud to be and all this stuff. And this low harmonic protection will say don't change the lowest tones. It'll protect it so your tones will still get through. So if you have sub bass, that'll still work, which is referencing this thing called sub. So let's turn on our equalizer and just turn it all the way down. We'll talk about what this does in a second, but right now we should have a sine wave. And so what this sub does, you'll see there's the numbers 1, 3, 4. You might be wondering where'd the 2 go? Well, if we turn this sub on, it'll introduce a signal that is 1 octave below the note we're hitting. So if you take the hertz value of the note we're hitting and divide it in half, so this is at 250, and you divide it in half, you will get what this does. It will introduce what is called sub signal right at the 125 range. And these guys introduce from the sub signal, it'll introduce a third and a fourth into your signal chain. So let's just really quick show you what that is. If you don't know what that is, I have a music theory series that you could go look at, and it covers this stuff. And things like thirds and fourths are common terms in music theory, but they also have mathematical meanings. It's a certain ratio above the frequency that we're using. So this is using it as the base frequency, and then it's going to move up a third from there. And this will introduce a fourth. And I'm sort of at a loss to why it's not working. I think it may be because my EQ. There it is. It was the EQ. But anyways, yeah, it introduces those things. So if you're playing a really low note, this could get very, very messy. For example, let's just go down 2 octaves. So it sounds clean, but if we do this, oh, it still sounds pretty clean. Anyways, sometimes this could be the source of a mess. We got lucky, I guess. And so, yeah, the low harmonic protection will keep that intact when you want that there. And then the last thing, the equalizer that we're going to cover in this video. So hold down Alt and click to reset these things to their default value. And this equalizer is special because it's key tracked and it affects specific partials. So you have the fundamental. And so if we turn this guy on, you'll notice our fundamental tone's right there. And if we turn it down, it'll only get rid of the fundamental. It's really cool. It's relative to the partials. Now this, it still affects sections like a general EQ would, but it's always relative to what note you're playing. So that's what makes this one special. It's sort of like an additive EQ. So it takes out sections in the thirds, fourth, fifth, sixth. So it's really weird like that. So it allows you to shape your content in ways that would not before really be all that possible with traditional methods. Because the traditional method, I have an EQ up. If we wanted to take out only the fundamental on every note, we'd find our fundamental and go, whoops, let's not use that one. Let's use this one. And be like, our fundamental's gone. But as soon as we play another note, the fundamental's back. And we, let's say, like, for whatever reason we don't want that. Well, you can do that with this EQ. And that is really cool. And again, a reference term for that is called key tracked. So it'll follow what note we're pushing around. So let's make a few sounds real quick, just to demonstrate some of this. So what I like to use is let's just grab a custom form because we can.
Come on.
All right.
Come on.
It sounds great. And you get something like that. And let's just turn the volume up because we selected a rather quiet sample. I mean, we can't do all that much at this point, but so you could get some interesting textures like that. We could go to our general sawtooth. And if you think about it, let's actually make a note thing and put a low note in. And put it down, and you can automate this. You right click, create automation clip, create automation clip, create automation clip. You could do like a few of them, and you can automate it on and off and create a talking bass, which would be pretty cool. Let's just do something generic, like something like this. And if you don't know how to do this, go watch my How to Make Your First Song in FL Studios tutorial series. That's why it exists, so I don't need to explain this. And so we could maybe do something different with this one. These are just our different EQ bands. And so maybe we do want it to match. Another nifty trick you could do is instead of doing each one individually, you could create one automation clip. You could right click on 2, or I believe that is 2. Right click 3 and write link to controller. We can select our automation clip for band EQ2. Get rid of remove conflicts because we don't want that. We want it to control them both. And click accept. And now it'll control them both. As you can see, now, I'm not being extraordinarily specific right now with stuff. We could, let's see, what else can we do to make this? And there you go. So, I mean, it's not the best bass in the world. It'd help if I had a song to sort of draw inspiration from. As in, I'm working on a song. But you could start with that, and then you just start going, and you could change things, change up the waveform. and just do all sorts of things. If you enjoy these videos, subscribe. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and have a blessed day.